friends, get excited because we're about to present to you our top 10 tabletop games of the year for 2018. You've been waiting for it all year long. It's the big exciting event when at the end of the year everybody puts together their lists of their favorite games or movies or whatever their item of choice is. For us, of course, it's board games.
Yep.
And we've put together our personal favorite lists of what our favorite games were that we've played all year long. Of course, as always, we have to make our upfront apologies for the fact that we can't play everything. We didn't play everything, but we did play a lot. And so I think we have a pretty good sampling. I personally feel pretty good about the selection that we had for our lists this year. And I'm very curious to find out what we share in common. Because I will say, I think it's interesting because there have been 3 years where we have shared the same number one on our lists. And those were Scythe, Mysterium, and The Seventh Continent.
Yeah, and I do think number one, I'm really confident in number one being shared. The rest of the list, I'm not so confident.
That's interesting because my 1 and 2 are like, I struggled over which position they were in.
No, I did too, but even if it's not your one, I'm like, this show is going to be in his top. Like, I'm not as like, I have no idea what's on this list.
And I think that,
at least for that one.
In general, I feel like most of the things on my list you would have, but it sounds like you don't think that about my list.
I don't know as much as I think they're on the same list. I think I have some things I think you rated higher than I did.
Interesting.
But before we go into, I think it'd be good to mention some of our biggest regrets of the games we haven't played, and maybe some sort of runner-ups or like just barely missed the mark.
Well, you want to start with our honorable mentions, as we might want to call them?
That's the word I was trying to think.
That's a word we can think of.
So I'll start off first, big honorable mention is legacy games are almost impossible for us to get to play through because we never get those people together. If we get a group for a legacy game, that's when they have a hard time coming together. It's always what happens. But if you watch our stream, we started Betrayal Legacy, and I loved that first campaign. I think it was much different than I expected, a lot interesting. But I'm excited to play that a lot more compared to some of the other legacy games we have. So to me, that's an honorable mention because I'm really looking forward to finishing that one up.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I had a lot of fun with that, although there were still some remnants of things I didn't enjoy about original Betrayal. There was enough that I really want to keep going back to it. What else did you have for honorable? Because
another big honorable mention for me is Duelosaur Island. I haven't really got to play enough to put it on the list, and that's why.
My honorable mention is 1/maybe 5 different things, and that is from Van Ryder Games, the graphic novel adventure series. I put this as an honorable mention because it's kind of not really a traditional game. In some ways, it's almost more comparable to a solo RPG, some of them, or a choose-your-own-adventure book. But I really enjoyed them. They were really exciting, and I'm excited for the next chapters of that series.
I did enjoy the one book you gave me so far.
And also regrets. You want to mention a couple of games that you wish you got to play?
My biggest regret is Western Legends. I've seen just a lot of it lately, and everyone's saying how much fun it looks. And I love Westerns, but I don't know. It's this and Red Dead. Some reason I haven't been able to get to them. So I don't even own this, unfortunately. But I'm hoping to maybe get a chance to either play it or see it in the year to come.
I think that's a great regret. I've heard about it, great things about it as well. And especially with playing Red Dead, I'm all into the Western scene now, Buster Scruggs on Netflix. There's all kinds of fun Western stuff. My biggest regret definitely is Aegis, however you want to say it, which we have a copy of. We just didn't get a chance to get to play it. And we've talked to the designer and people from that company for over the years as they've been developing it, so I feel like we have kind of a familial bond with it. Yeah, all right, shall we get into it?
Yeah.
Why don't you start us off with
right.
your number 10. This is our top 10 favorite games of 2018. We don't know each other's lists, so it's going to be exciting. Let's do it. Kick us off.
All right. So for my number 10, I have Fireball Island. This game just recently came out from Restoration Games. It used to be a very old game, sort of one of those clunky, more toy than real game. But Restoration Games sort of spiffed it up and came up with this really cool sort of set piece. Still has all the fun action of the toys with the marbles going down, but a bit more gamified, so you actually feel like you're making choices and whatnot. It's so fun when you see it hit the table and playing with it. It's at my number 10 because I do think in the end still feels like one of those rolling moves with the way the cards work. And also, that box is very flimsy. But still, I thought it was just such a fun game to see at the table, and we'll always be excited for that to see that if someone wants to play that.
Restoration games, big. They put out a lot of things that we really like, and if you watch our stream, you got to see us play that. And I'm definitely excited to just jump into all those expansions too.
Oh yeah, I'm ready for bees.
Yeah, we still haven't experienced the pirate ship and all that. All right, my number 10 is another game with the word island in the title. But it's not Fireball Island, it's Palm Island. This is a solo card game from Portal Dragon Games, and it came out, it was a Kickstarter that I backed. It is a very unique kind of game because you can play it entirely in one hand. You are meant to play this game on the go, on a plane, in a car, and as you play, you move cards from the front to the back of the deck, you rotate them to indicate what resources you have, and it's a super unique concept. It really works well in your hand just for you. One player, there is a 2-player mode, but I think it shines and was designed for a solo game. And it is fun, and it does work, and it has a cool, make you want to go back and kind of replay your high scores kind of a thing, kind of a quality to it. There's even some achievements in the box you can try and go for. So for that novelty of it and for how well it works, it's not just a gimmick, I don't think. Palm Island, that's my number 10.
I do feel like, at least from my list, I think Palm Island also chose. This year there are a lot of things I feel like maybe while there's certain things in the game that are not like number one, and there's a reason why it's not number one, and there's just other things like, for example, you just said you play all with one hand, they're just either the mechanic or something designed about it's just so unique, you're just like, it's a great idea, and how can I not love it?
Yeah, I will also say I think Palm Island is the only weird outlier on my list. I feel like all my other games are ones that are on like everyone else's top 10 list.
His entire list is Hasbro.
Yeah, Milton Bradley exclusives.
All right, so why don't you take us to number 9?
Oh, we're doing that, are we?
Yeah.
You're really putting me on the spot. All right, well, my number 9 is a big game that came out early in the year, and that's Rising Sun from Simon. Eric Lang designed game based on Japanese mythology. Very cool competitive game where players have different clans with unique powers, and it's a beautiful design. The board and the players' figures, the miniatures, of course, it's a Simon game, goes without saying. They're great to look at. But the things it brings to the table in terms of how the combat system works and this the turn order, the way that it changes, the way your alliances can really change things up in the game as you play. Super interesting stuff at play. A lot of different things you can learn through different strategies as you bounce off each other and try out the different clans. It's a great design. Only reason it's probably lower on my list is just because it's super aggressive and I get a little scared of those kinds of games.
I really did enjoy when I think of a lot of these sort of mini war games that it sort of had put a lot more focus outside of the actual battle. It wasn't just, oh, I'm able to sweep the entire board, but because either A, with the alliances, which is sort of nice because of the alliance stage, I think the Tea Party stage, I think, or something,
yeah, something along those lines.
You get people sort of focusing more about that, because usually some other games I don't even think about making like temporary alliances and stuff like that, but this literally makes it a core mechanic, so people focus on that a little more. My next one comes from the creators of Code Names, and that's Chex Games Trap Words. In this game, you are split into 2 teams, and it's sort of like Taboo, except you are going to make the list of words that they can't say. And they don't know what that list is. And I think that's really fun because it's a bit more creative. As in our review, we mentioned how Jonathan was able to get someone with the word orbit for gum, or gum for orbit, the other way around, which I thought just allows for a lot more clever thinking, as well as the curses, which had some really silly stuff that I think just makes this a really fun party game.
Yeah, this is definitely word games right up my alley. Great company, great party game. Yeah, you can watch our full review too. Probably for almost all these games, actually, we did full reviews for a lot of them. But yeah, definitely a fun one. All right, so you're number 8.
I am number 8.
You am number 8.
So my number 8 is Portal Games Detective. In this game, you will be taking the role of as investigators and using not only the cards presented in the game, but a computer app, or website, I guess is actually the correct term here. You'll be going through sort of a case line of 5 cases that are all connected. This was really interesting. It was a lot of fun the way they did use the computer mechanic, and some of the cards you discover won't be for that case particular, but maybe put into a future pile, rewarding you in essence for sort of going a little bit above and beyond. The only reason I put this a little bit lower on my list, honestly, is because they only came with 5 cases, and of those 5 cases, I felt like they were like a lot of the other story games have a lot more different ones, and this one felt like it was very like if you weren't there for case 1 or 2, it just didn't feel like as easier to jump in for other games. But the computer mechanic, and like I said earlier with Palm Island, is just I want to see more games using that.
You know, it's definitely a game that you got to be with it for that full campaign, and we were, the 2 of us, and it was a really great experience doing that. So now it's my turn for my number 8?
Yes.
Okay, I should probably check, because for all I know, I'm saying these...
It's okay. I think when lists, I see other people have it. We're allowed to be able to check.
We're allowed to check. All right. My number 8 is the same as your number 10. It's Fireball Island, The Curse of Volcar. The new version, as you said, from Restoration Games. It is just a super fun party game, just in that look and design. Seeing that on your table and watching those marbles go flying is great. It really does improve on the original in almost every way, while still retaining the feel of that kind of old school game. There's still tons of luck involved, but there's a little more that you can do, and I think especially with those expansions, which we aren't counting in this in our listings, but you definitely can add in some more depth and some more strategy there. But in general, it's so much fun to see on your table, and it's easy to teach people, and it's a game that I can see coming out for us just so many times in the future, because so I feel like so many groups will kind of get excited to play this game.
No, I completely agree. And like I said, you said luck was a big thing, and that's why I said it still felt like the move and roll. But because of the way the cards work and some other mechanics, it was like, it's still not like, okay, we get it, it's Monopoly. You know, you still have fun playing and be rolling around and thinking about like, okay, if I move in this direction, it's going to be harder for a marble to come around and hit me and stuff, or like to get these little treasure tokens. So it's still, I think, a fantastically fun game. And as I said, we're trying to judge just by on the base sets alone, but it was still a great buy, and I still had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. So we're pretty in sync on that one. Now my number 7.
Yeah.
You have to keep reminding me how this works because I get confused. My number 7, guess what? It's from Portal Games, Detective, a modern crime board game. Everything that you said, I underscore it. The computer system, the way that the mechanics of the game work, I found fascinating. It does a really great job bringing everything together. It's a really fun experience, the way that the cases connect over the course of that campaign. Really enjoyed that. This is honestly probably a surprise, because if you had asked me at the beginning of the year, I probably would have predicted this might be my number 1 or 2.
I thought this was going to be higher on your list.
It is not, honestly, and I think solely it is really just because, as much as I loved the mechanics, the actual story itself didn't quite grab me the way some other of these narrative games have. So I think it goes to show how strong I thought those mechanics were, that I really enjoyed it. I just wish the narrative pulled me in a little bit more.
No, exactly. This is the way it works. This is a game I would like to be like Time Stories, where, you know, this is the Egyptian one, that, like, not literally for this case, but like we know that there's the 80s theme,
right? The LA version is
which
coming.
I'm excited for that, and I'd love for this game to be like that, because I think that would be perfect for this. I know both of us loved it. It's just, as I said, like compared to, I looked at other story games, and sometimes it's a lot easier, like if you're not as smart like I am, to find out where things go wrong, when you can't really do that in Detective until you've gone through the entire thing.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, but overall still, like, it was really fun. The mechanics are amazing, and I hope they keep pulling through with that in other versions of it.
As do I.
So my number 7, because I believe that's the number we're on.
That's correct. Lucky number 7.
Is Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. We finally got a chance to play this, and I've been able to play it both solo and mixed, so that I've been able to really dive into it in different ways. And I do like the way they streamlined it enough, as we've said in our review, to, like, I can feel like I don't have to feel guilty bringing this to the table. Or it's not like I have to plan a week ahead to be like, okay, everyone, we're playing Arkham, so clear your night and stuff. But in the end, I do think when I compare, the reason it's lower is I thought, like, all right, when I look at the entire Arkham Files options out there, to me, if I were to choose it, Mansions or the card game are still above the rest. including this one. So that's why I think it plays a little lower on mine.
Yeah, it is. I am surprised it's that low. That's your detective, I guess, for the year.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, how about your number 6?
Right. So my number 6, and I think this is where I might piss off some people,
Tell them about it.
is Keyforge. This is the new card game from Fantasy Flight that is a unique card system. And that was just crazy how it works. And sure, it had a little bumps along the way with the names, which I think is actually even better. But unfortunately, we have not gotten a bad name deck, unless you've gotten one and haven't told me.
No, I'm sorry.
And the idea how it works to, in essence, sort of avoid a lot of the pitfalls that happen with like Magic the Gathering or any other TC or CCG, depending on how you use the term, is really cool. But I think even though I enjoyed playing it and playing with the factions, I did find that sometimes like saying only one faction can be a little bit annoying when you're like, I really want to use this cards and stuff. And the other big thing, which will come up, bring up again later with one of my picks, is that I feel like once when I play with cards in deck, I'm like, okay, because I can't edit the decks and stuff. So I can't really mess around and then think, okay, now I understand how this works or this. Like maybe I could be like, oh, I hope I get this Mars card with this Knight card in a future deck, but you can't. That's like such a small chances I feel like of happening. It's not really something you think too much about.
It is interesting. I think perhaps you as a seasoned CCG veteran, you have more of that desire to deck build. So maybe that's like frustrating for you, it sounds like, to not be able to do that. Yeah. All right, so Keyforge. So send your angry letters to nah, still it's a top 10 game. There's nothing to be ashamed of about that. My number 6 game, which is probably appropriately enough coming right after Detective for my list, is Chronicles of Crime from Lucky Duck Games, which I could probably put these two kind of interchangeable, switch them around, but this is another narrative detective game. This one also uses a technological aspect to it. Not a website, but an actual app on your phone. In fact, heavily, much more heavily even than Detective, you're scanning every card that you see, every clue, every person you're talking to, and most of the game is on this app and questioning people, even looking through with VR goggles to look at a crime scene for evidence. And for me, this I thought was in a very different but similar kind of way, as innovative as Detective was in terms of the gameplay and the use of technology. But it has more of a style that, for me, I think we mentioned this in our Kickstarter preview, harkens back to something like Phoenix Wright. It's more lighthearted. It's much less realistic, which is a very different kind of feel. But I think for me, it's a little bit edges out what I like about those kinds of games. So both are both great mystery-solving games. So Chronicles of Crime, but I put it at number 6 for me.
Yeah, this one really, I think, stands out at the pack with the way you use technology. Like Detective does too, but the way this works and with the scanning of cards makes it so, for example, in Detective, you have the pack cards. This is used for case 1, and it says right there. When this could be used for case 1, case 6, case 5, because it just says food. But you scan it and it'll refer to food being for something else. And that way, when you find different things in sort of the VR mode, you can be like, I think that, what would you say that is? I say that's papers. Maybe there's a thing for briefcase or something. And I think that's a really amazing mechanic.
And it creates for them having the possibility, which they're doing, of creating new cases which you can just download and you can reuse evidence. They don't need to send out a new box to create a new case, which is a really neat concept.
All right, we're now heading to the top 5.
Top five. Right. Very, very big deal. Very big deal, because my number 5 on my list is Arkham Horror, 3rd edition. I can't believe I put it higher than you put it. It's honestly really strange to me. But I really liked this version of the game, definitely over the 2nd edition. Maybe even, for me, while I enjoy the card game a lot, I think it might be better. I think part of that for me is that I am not the one who has to buy all the packs and keep up with it. And so for me, that part's a little bit of a headache. I like this game. You take it out, you set it up. It's just a really cool game. The way that they've streamlined all the aspects from the original, I enjoy the theming of it. I think it works well with the way with different numbers of players. I think it's just taken aspects from Eldritch, from the card game, and really kind of mixed them together to be this kind of hybrid beasts that I really like.
I think I enjoyed the 2nd edition a bit more than you, so maybe that's why it's a little lower for me. What I'm also looking forward is for a lot of these games, not only when I played it was it fun, but even though we're not rating it on it technically, like if it has expansions, I'm like, I can't wait to see what they do. I think that's something to take into account. And I am excited for them to maybe do a bit more like some really more interesting like gods with some more stories and stuff, and maybe some more weird boards.
Yeah, maybe see what else they do with those Doom tokens too, beyond anomalies. All kinds of things you could do. All right, number 5.
All right, so my number 5 was actually what Keyforge was above it. These two were switching, and it was able to beat it Christmas Day.
Let's hear it.
It's the Transformers trading card game. I mean, I'm biased because it's Transformers, not gonna lie. But I did think the mechanics were really great. I thought it was advanced enough that I'm thinking about making decks and stuff, but it still has enough of that basic stuff that if someone's maybe like new to trading card games, that I don't think it's gonna scare them away as much as maybe going into Magic at this day and age where there's so many complicated interactions. The fact that they designed it so that, for example, Optimus is both a rare, so you got a really good version, and a common. So you can really make sure you can at least get him. Of course, it still fits, has the trading card game problem, which Keyforge tries to fix with singles, which we brought up in our review of the game. But the reason why I said Christmas Day is my brother got me a box of cards. And opening it up, and I got Grimlock, which made me very happy. But the other thing is I got a different rare, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting ability. How could I use it? And I was really having fun thinking about like, oh, maybe if I could do this and stuff. And that's why it finally pushed itself over Keyforge for me. Because getting that new pack, and when I see a new weird card like ability and stuff, instead of just being like, oh, that's in the deck, it's like, how could I sort of mess around with it? And that's why I think it just topped off.
You know, it warms my heart that you have a Transformers game that you like.
it is, I'll take that. There's been worse. And I should also mention I'm excited to see, because with the Metroplex deck, it shows that they're willing to try out some more weird things, which is nice because Transformers, I think you need that when you have like combiners, triple changers, Soundwave, who has all the cassette tapes and stuff. So I'm excited about it. I hope they do more to make it a little bit easier for people maybe to get some of those stronger cards. And obviously this is the first set, but it is sort of like if you really want to run tanks, you need this card, or if you want to run this, you need this card. Or if they can do more options, so if there's multiple different tank builds or Dinobot builds. So I'm very excited to see where this card game goes.
All right, you're number 4.
That's right, my number 4.
Really breaking into it, people.
Yeah, my number 4 was Siemens Rising Sun. I thought this was exactly just how I would want a territory game. As I said before, I think both you and I can get a little scared when those just straight aggression games, even though we have fun with them. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of like Cyclades and stuff. But this, because there's so many other ways to get points and do weird things, I felt like I had options. And like my strategies could work out. And because there's so many different ways with the different monsters and stuff, and the minis look amazing, I just thought it was, for a big, heavy miniatures game, this is definitely, if you like that kind of stuff, this is one to take a look at.
Yeah, I can't fault you for it. I think it's a good, solid spot for the game. It's definitely it's a great game.
I will say, I forgot that was 2018 initially.
I know. I think it was like maybe the first game we played of the entire year. So the fact that it was able to last long enough in our memories to make it into the top 10 for both of us says a lot about how good it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what was your number 4?
My number 4, I think I know what it is, but I'll look just to make sure. All right, my number 4 is, maybe this is another one that's probably not on a lot of other people's lists. It comes from Everything Epic Games, and it's Big Trouble in Little China, the board game.
That was really close to mine.
Well, Big Trouble, if you don't know, it's based on the movie Big Trouble in Little China, and it's not too dissimilar from something like Arkham Horror. It's one of those kind of big, you might call it a dungeon crawler with a bunch of dice rolling for combat and attacks. You're going through Chinatown, you're taking out mystic demons and spirits and such. I just really enjoyed it. I thought the way that it took everything that you love about the movie and blended it together and made the different characters work, and the way the narrative options come into play was really smart and fun. And I could see being a little fatigued by it in terms of, we have so many of these fight a bunch of minis on a board, dungeon crawlers. They're everywhere. But for whatever reason, this one stood out to me, maybe a little bit because of that theme. Again, the narrative. Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China was definitely high on my list of experiences.
This one was one of those ones that just didn't make it for me. And I didn't want to say it because it was good enough that it might be on yours when we did our recommendations. But one of the reasons why it didn't make it is, as you said, it's a dungeon crawler, and I feel like there's a lot of those coming out. The movie itself, I think while I enjoy watching the movie, I don't know how many people I know the movie. So I feel like it's a bit of a harder sell for that in that case when I feel like people are like, okay, Lovecraft, we get it. Even if you haven't read his stuff, you sort of know if you're into board games. So like it was one of those things that I think I think this game would be able to hit the table as much, which I don't think it has as much as it deserves to.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. I think it's my favorite of their games so far, honestly, everything Epics, but...
I can't say no to the Secret Temple.
I know you can't. So is it my turn again?
Yeah.
So it's my number 3? All right. Top 3, everybody.
Ba-bum, ba-bum.
Getting real exciting. All right. I don't need to look at it anymore. My number 3 is another one that came out pretty early this year from AEG. It's Thunderstone Quest. Having never played the original Thunderstone, this is a deck building game that I thought really did a lot with the deck building format to make it feel interesting and fresh again. The way that you can level up your cards and how it's really important, your decision of which area of the board you're going to go to on your turn, I found really fascinating. It's a solidly built deck builder that has a lot of meat on it, and the more that you play, and you can customize with so many different options of cards, as many of these deck builders have. It was one that really stood out to me overall for the year. So that's Thunderstone Quest. That's my number 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a big fan of deck building games. It's hard to turn me off from that. And the way you can build up the dungeon to make these different paths, and this is not even including that new expansion that's coming out that sort of changes it so you're more on the defensive instead of the offensive.
And there's like solo and co-op modes too, which I really want to try.
And there's sort of a story mode, but it doesn't seem to really matter too much comparatively for a campaign, which is at this point good or bad depending, because you might have so many campaign games you're like, that's great.
Yeah, all right, so you're number 3.
My number 3 goes to Welcome To from Blue Cocker Games. This is a write and play, I guess would be the term you'd use, where you each get your a little piece of paper where you'll write on, and depending on cards that flip out. And because of the way it works, you could technically play with up to 99 people as long as everyone has a piece of paper. And when we played this, had so much fun. This is one of those games, I always love a game too and deck building in essence is sort of like this too, when you sort of just build something. So at the end of the game, like even if you lose, you had something there. And this takes us to such a fun example with the way you get to write on it's very tactile, you're writing on a piece of paper. And the fact that you can fit as many places you want. In one review, I forget who I was watching, was talking about how he's like, someone came in to their like game night in the middle of play and they're like, yeah, here's a sheet of paper and we'll just give you a couple numbers. Like people could leave and come in as they please. And just this idea of having that style that anyone can play number, regardless of number of people, that kind of flexibility, is a blessing.
I'll confess, Welcome To is not on my list, but I'm really glad it's on your list. I do really like it a lot. I think for me, part of why it didn't make the cut is just because I had played a couple other roll and write games that I got through Kickstarter just this year. So I feel like it felt a little similar to me, but I feel like it's kind of the first mainstream hit in that genre, although technically there's no rolling, it's a flip and write.
Right, and I actually think that's one of the reasons why it's better, because you don't have to roll, and while that's still fun to roll dice, I think by just having the cards flip, it's easier for everyone to sort of feel get along, and also, while there is still luck, it doesn't feel nearly as, why do I keep rolling that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a strong number 11 for me, probably. It's definitely.
So we both had something in the top 3. That's the other person's 11.
Yeah. So who's next? Is it you again?
I think so. Yeah.
You're number 2, right?
My number 2.
Oh boy, this is getting hot.
So my number 2 was already said.
Oh boy, what is it?
My number 2 is Chronicles of Crime. I love the way the story works out, how it's broken into smaller chapters. There's a bunch. The way it works is just like Mansion of Madness. I love because the digital aspect takes care of the expansions. You shouldn't usually need to make too many pieces for it. You can just scan things. But I just think that worked out so well. I did like the way the story worked with the locations and stuff. We didn't try it yet. I did play a single player after we did a group one recently and had a lot of fun. But I haven't tried it out, and I want to try it now. The idea you said you read online of someone actually hooking it up to the TV while the other person looking at VR, and it just sounds like, this sounds so much fun.
I will say one thing maybe that held it back from, not even really held it back, but one thing is that I do think the game works a lot better with one or two people. I think this is one that with more, there's not as much to do.
I just did solo.
Yeah.
So I think that pushed it up a lot more for me. And we have done, I think there's a lot of these games where we have, like we did that because we wanted to try it and we had 3 then, but there's so many games when you and I have fun with just the 2 of us.
No, honestly, recently we were playing with 3. I was kind of like, I wish that they would just leave so I could just do this because I feel like it makes more sense.
And I will say this is really a small thing. I don't think it's too fair to judge it on, but the insert, every game company should look at it. They have room for all the boards, and for the expansion, they literally have a slot that shows the symbol so you can click it in, and then a plastic thing goes over it and snaps in so the cards don't go over the place. It's phenomenal.
All right, shall I give my number 2?
Yes.
My number 2 is another one that's already been said, and it is Keyforge. And this honestly came close to me for being my number 1. I really think that this game is a miracle, and I think it speaks a lot to our personal preferences of our backgrounds and what we enjoy in games. For me, the fact that I don't have to think about what's in my deck or how it's built is a godsend. I love that. I love picking it up and just being able to play and seeing what I get. I think it's super fun. And more than that, I just think the mechanics themselves, how different it is from most other games of this ilk is really cool and really makes it stand out. And I think this is a game that in years to come, I think this will stand the test of time. I think this is one of these games that we may see imitators of it, but even if we don't, I think that in a few years, people will still be playing Keyforge the way people were still playing Netrunner a few years after that came out. I don't think this is one of those games that's just going to go away. So I super enjoyed it, and the fact that normally I don't really like CCGs, or if I do, I just don't like them enough to get into them. And this one kind of won me over, made it earn that spot on my list. Absolutely.
I can completely see where you're coming from with there. And I think, as you said, it could be just the background of playing enough CCGs. I sort of think that way. But still, everything else about it, I can't argue, is just so right. Just the idea of being able to be like, I don't have to build a deck, which is great, which is just saves so much of a time saver. Or you don't feel like, while there is, I'm sure, like my brother argued, it was just hilarious because he said, like, it's not a game of skill, it's luck, it's just what's in your deck. I'm like, that's not true, really. I think all the decks probably seemed relatively balanced. Maybe one definitely better than the other. That's always going to be.
Or maybe some are counters to a different type of deck.
Exactly, which we brought up. Mm-hmm. Also, I think it will be able to survive with Magic. It's different enough and weird enough. I think it can stand side by side.
So, shall we get into our number 1s?
Yes.
I think at this point, we can safely say we have the same one.
Yes. So,
should we say it at the same time?
All right. My number 1 is Millennial Monopoly.
God, I wish. All right.
Yeah.
My number 1.
It's Root.
It's Root. All right, so I guess technically it's my turn.
Sure.
So I can start.
Yeah.
Root, if you don't know, it's an asymmetrical war game, really, where each player is a different faction, a different race of forest creature. In some cases, it might literally be the Woodland Alliance. And you are all playing with very different objectives, different boards, different pieces completely, but using the same map and interacting with each other in different ways. And the way that your characters can interact and the different experiences you can have in doing so, the fact that it is an aggressive war game, but it doesn't feel quite that way all the time when you're playing it. It has a beautiful art style. It's a beautiful design. It's number 1. What about you?
Yeah. First of all, the thing you mentioned, with Rising Sun, if you put that on a table with let's put it next to another war game that had an Asian theme, people are like, these look like the same thing. This looks so different from every war game. It's not just plastic minis. The little wooden pieces in the art make it, I feel like, much more cozier is almost the right way.
Oh, it's cozy.
And then, so visually knocks it out of the park. Mechanically, if you succeed on asymmetrical play, the gameplay and replayability is just immeasurable. Because even if you play the Vagabond, for example, you may be like, oh, I want to try it differently now with the strategy. Because you're not going to be playing the same way with each player. Just like I thought Cthulhu Wars a little bit. Not as much, but because they're not as asymmetrical as Root. And it nailed it.
Yeah.
Every time I'm like, I can't wait to play this group. I can't wait to play this. I can't wait to go back to the Vagabond now and stuff.
That's hard to pull off. Like
absolutely.
I can't. It's hard enough to design a game where everyone plays the same, but they essentially designed 4 games and made them all work together in the same box.
You mentioned with the how to play, how it was one of the hardest because of that.
Yeah, the how to play video we did was like 15 minutes long because it was like 4 different games. It was insane. I mean, it's just. Yeah, it seems like a clear standout, not just for us, but for everybody in the board game world. So I think it deserves its spot at number 1. Let's run through our individual lists again, just to recap for people real quick, and then we can discuss them further. So my list was starting from 10 to number 1: Palm Island, Rising Sun, Fireball Island, Detective, Chronicles of Crime, Arkham Horror, Big Trouble in Little China, Thunderstone Quest, Keyforge, and Root, which I should mention is published by Leader Games. If we missed that.
So my top 10 was Fireball Island, then Trap Words, Detective, Arkham Horror, Keyforge, Transformers TCG, The Rising Sun, Welcome to, Chronicles of Crime, and, as we said, Root.
So our lists were pretty similar. I knew you were going to have Transformers, and I wasn't.
Yeah, I know. Like
the one that I didn't know you were going to have Welcome to.
It does seem we're a bit flipped.
Oh yeah.
It seems like you put things higher on your list than I did, and then I put things higher on.
Yeah, it's like Rising Sun and Keyforge. We kind of like switched places a little bit. Chronicles of Crime a little bit as well.
And there's games too, like you said. Even like we both had one that are like so close to making it too, which is I think a very interesting.
Well, I have a few I actually wrote that are ones that are like Trap Words is one that I did really like too. That wasn't on my list. I think I just like these other games better. It was just a hard choice.
Another game for me that was on my list that didn't make it list was Dinosaur Tea Party. I did really enjoy it, but I felt like these other games are a little better.
For me, Dinosaur Tea Party I felt was, even though I have fun with it, it's too close to Guess Who. It doesn't add, to me. I wish it added a little more stuff.
Yeah,
to
I see where you're coming from.
But it's fun.
One that was really close to me, but partly because I would need to play it more. Because I did play it more, like a couple more times after we played it, but we've only had a chance once. Was Deep Madness, and this is because I did a lot of research. This game it's a miniatures game of sort of like, I want to say Cthulhu meets BioShock, like. Really weird, twisted, almost Dead Space underwater. And while we were playing it, it was a lot of fun with these minis and stuff. But then we hit this point. We'll talk more because we're actually going to do a full review. But at our point when it wasn't difficult because of, I think, the game mechanics and stuff. It was just because we had to roll one die to discover this clue thing.
It was a dice roll block.
And then afterwards, I went online to read, and a lot of people were like, yeah, this is really difficult, and we either love it or hate it because of that. Or some people were like, we made these rules changes. My question, though, I was thinking also, the why I want to get to the whole thing is, if a game, you made a house rule, doesn't count. In my book, doesn't count. Yeah. No, it's a fair thing.
Rules
like,
is shit.
That's what I said. I felt like that one thing was like, we were having fun until we hit that.
I think the biggest game that's on neither of our lists is Everdell. Which we did play. I just wish I got to play it more. I did really enjoy the system of it, but I didn't feel that. I don't know if it would make my list if I played it more, but it didn't leap out at me that I needed to.
I have played it a lot more, both the single and the odd, because I bought it. The single's fantastic.
Solo mode.
Solo mode, yes. And I highly suggest you try it. But the multiplayer mode, just the way it worked. The reason why I didn't make my list, I feel like that first round, or whatever, the first season, you feel so limited and slow. I just felt like if you didn't get certain green cards too, you feel a little bit more behind, and that's why I just feel like while the game is fun and I love the little tree sticking out, that first turn and few rounds, I think that's what dragged it down to me, that not make the list.
Fair. A couple others I wanted to shout out. One is Scarabia, which I did really like. It's just
I did too.
Simple abstract puzzle game, but at the end of the day, just like the other ones I liked better. And another one that I think we just got to mention, because I do see it on a lot of top 10 lists, controversial though, is The Mind, which a lot of people talk about and love. For us, it kind of was a little lukewarm on it. But
I played that game a little bit more with some people. And it is one of those things that were like, it was really fun to play with some people and be like, oh, we got it, or we didn't, oh, so close. In the end, it was like most of the games, except technically Detective, that's because it's like you finish it so I don't count that. It's, did I really want to go back and play it because I'm excited to play it, or is it more like the few times I played it was like, hey guys, try this weird thing out.
Right. Once you get it, you're like,
so
okay.
like I understand why it's on top 10 list. It's just for me, it's like, it's I'm not dying for it to come onto the table again.
I feel you. I'm with you. Yeah. Any surprises? Like I said, I'm surprised Detective wasn't lower. Anything on your list that you're like, oh, I thought would have been higher, or things that you thought were going to make your list?
The story games I thought would be higher. I think both of us usually are big fans.
I think Fireball Island too.
Welcome.
I thought might have been higher on my personal list. Welcome to, yeah.
I thought that was going to be on your list.
I did really like it, yeah, but I don't know. I just didn't. I just liked all these other games a little bit more, I guess. Like I said, it's probably 11.
And I will say for me. And this is actually one I think I forgot to mention. For both of us, I think we were going to have a lot of fun, but we hadn't had a chance because we need the group for it, was Decrypto. We didn't get to...
Right, those are a couple ones I wish we got to play. Decrypto, which is a yellow word guessing game, and there's another one called Cryptid, which
I was curious about that.
Is another
I didn't
guessing
somehow
game.
I missed that one.
It involves like mythical creatures. Supposed to be fun.
I guess for me, number one that's high on your list was AEG's
Thunderstone. Oh yeah, I'm surprised that wasn't on your list at all.
Honestly, I think that campaign thing I mentioned, it did turn me off a bit. Like it felt like, well, that's really the point. Like I didn't really. I
just didn't really. I was just like, it's just a thing. You don't even.
But like, it's still a deck building game that was fun.
Yeah, because you usually like deck building games more than I do.
I guess
maybe your deck build it out
a little bit, yeah.
Whereas I usually abstain, so it felt a little more exciting for me, or something like that. But I think overall, I mean, it was a great year, and it was. There were a lot of really good games, and like I said, I felt like for the first time, I didn't know if we might share all the same games because there were so many good ones. I didn't even. I almost thought you might have put Arkham Horror at number 1, like just guessing because I didn't really know. But I think in hindsight, Root seems like the obvious choice.
Yeah, no, the Root was the one I was like, oh, yeah, that's gonna be in his top 2. Like that was I was pretty sure, and that Keyforge was going to be up there too. Like because you came out really happy with that, and that's another reason why I actually like Keyforge. Even though I'm not as big, the fact that someone like you, who's like maybe a bit more afraid of like trading card games, is like, this was fun. I'm like, that's great to see and it's done in a way that I don't think is very predatory, comparatively speaking. I mean, still random in some extent. And so I'm really happy with that. And like I said, I mean, going through my list alone, and there are, I think, a couple on your list, quickly because I pulled up a different one, actually. Like Chronicles, Transformers, Keyforge, Arkham, Detective, all these games are like, I'm so excited how they keep using the mechanics, either an expansion or another version. Like this year, I felt like brought a lot of weird new stuff to the table. And it's a shame that I felt like none of these, I mean, okay, maybe not Transformers in this case, but like I don't think any of them were Spiel des Jahres picks.
Oh no, definitely not.
But like in terms of being something, like the mind is innovative, but it was like too weird to innovate. But like these are all like, this is I wish this is the kind of stuff we had a lot of fun with, and I'm really excited to see more of.
Yeah, and I think we had a really good mix this year too of like lighter party games and heavy strategy games. And it is funny how, thinking about our past number 1 picks, like Root and Scythe, I think are definitely of a similar genre. And then it was Mysterium, which is very different, the Seventh Continent, which is very different. But I think it even speaks more that usually we don't, I think we definitely tend towards the thematic and often co-op games.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that Root still came out on top, like, really speaks to how great it is.
Well, that's the thing. I think when you do as I said, asymmetrical game right, out of the park. Like
out of the air.
You've done it perfect. And it just stands out from all the other ones. Rising Sun sort of did this, and Cthulhu Wars not as much, but it does it a little bit too. Root does it perfectly, I'm not just playing Risk and feel like I already lost because I don't have the same army size to you.
Yeah. If you always feel competitive, there's different ways you can approach things. Every game is totally different. What happens when you don't know what's going to occur? It's exciting. Root is Roll for Crits Game of the Year for 2018. There's no doubt about it. we hope that you enjoyed this list, and we definitely want you to let us know what your top 10 games are, what you've played, if you've played all the games on our lists, if there's ones you just straight up didn't like, you're surprised that we had on there, or if you're surprised we missed something. I think we covered mostly everything. Usually it's those legacy games that really we miss out on, but we actually played Betrayal this year, and
like I said, I
Ultimate
feel like
Werewolf.
in my mind somehow, comparatively, there's so many games I just got like so close that we can't grade them.
There's always so many, of course, that hopefully we'll get to. Maybe we'll get to review them later next year. Anyway, Root, though, number one. Hope you like this list. I hope you have a good 2018, and I hope 2019 has even better games. I'm sure we'll do a preview video soon of what we're looking forward to.
Indeed.
Because that'll be exciting. So we see you again in the new year, my friends. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will, and a Happy New Year from Roll for Crit.
Hey, if you like what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and like this video for more excellent board game content.
Heck yeah!